And I said, I want to dance for you. And she looked at me like I was from Mars. She says, well, what are your qualifications? I said, I don't have any. And she said, well, let me put you in contact with one of my young dancers. And you'll attend what they call the third age. And it was a group of seniors, and I wasn't a senior, I was 53. She said, you can come and exercise with them and see what they do. And this young dancer leads the group that's in my company. So I did, I attended, and it was fine. And one of her dancers, a senior, got ill, severely ill, before Liz and her company was going to Yugoslavia to perform. So she asked me to do this role. It was a very simple role. And we toured through Zagreb and Belgrade. That was in August of 1988. And I didn't expect there'd be anything after that. September, she asked one of her friends, male friends, if she thought I had stage presence. I don't know how he knew. Anyway, he said, yes, he does. So she hired me into the company. And she said, Thomas, it'll take me 10 years to make a dancer out of you. Okay, you're in my company. So after 10 years, maybe it was a little bit before, she says, Thomas, I made you a dancer. And that's the truth, so help me.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk a little bit about how I will, and I guess to say that Liz Lehrman, the founder, actually departed Dance Exchange about 7-8 years ago, and so my time at Dance Exchange has been almost completely not with Liz there. It's been Dance Exchange, the organization that has functioned without her being at the center. And so the Dance Exchange that I have always really known has been one that's been deeply rooted in at the intersections of community engaged arts practices and of social relevance, and what happens when we really bring those two things together. What are the intersections? How does that live in the world? And so, I mean, if I talk just personally about some of my story with Dance Exchange, I feel like I came to the organization actually from a place of like formalism. Like I was a formally trained kind of ballet, modern classical Cunningham technique dancer. And then I found the Liz Lehrman Dance Exchange, and there was something really different about being in rehearsal with Cassie Metter, our current executive artistic director, when she asked me just to like reflect on what it means to hold someone's head. Like not just like in the postmodern realm that I was used to as a dancer of like, well, what is the weight of that head? Like how much does it weigh? What's it like to hold? But more in like, who is this person that I'm in relationship with right now? What does it mean for me and who I am to be holding this person's head? So I very much feel like my journey through Dance Exchange has been more of connecting to my humanity in some ways. But I can also talk about the organization in kind of where we are today, where I feel like we really center asking questions at the heart of our mission. And there are really 4 questions that are at the center, and those are who gets to dance, where is the dance happening, what is it about, and why does it matter? And I think that this kind of philosophy of asking questions very much lives in the walls of the building that we work in. I think it lives in the architecture of the ways that we design residencies and experiences. I think that it is like deeply rooted in the, dare I say, souls of those who work at Dance Exchange and with Dance Exchange. And some of that is spawned from Liz Lehrman's critical response process, which has been which is it's a 4-step process that really centers an artist in a creative practice, in something that is in process. And I think that the critical response process and the way that it evolved in the organization has centered this philosophy of asking questions as a practice of life.
Well, Liz Lerman certainly has fixed that portion of modern dance where seniors are allowed to dance, and the movement of their body is so different that it just emphasizes the differences in a way that no one would expect to see.
I think for me, one thing that came up is this way of when it has been very commonplace for me in my history to be behind someone at the front, at the center of the room, trying to replicate, like trying to do exactly as this person is doing. I don't know that before I found Dance Exchange that I thought of that as an intergenerational practice until I had to learn the movements from Martha Whitman, who is a woman, and Martha's in maybe her... Well,
83.
Okay, Martha's 83, and she has a really particular way, just even with her hands, of like actually moving, like I'm thinking in specific of this moment of like shaking off something, and the amount of like detail and attention it required for me to really figure out like what is that experience, where is that movement coming from Martha. I guess to say that like in the conversations that ensue in that dialogue, in that learning, in that shared kind of intersection point, that's where the learning is for me at Dance Exchange.
Liz was one of the first to do it and has been noted for it and received very good efforts in raising money because of that. That's true.
It's recently been a revelation for me. It's actually that when we talk about a spectrum of generations or a spectrum of age and aging, that someone in their 70s and someone who's 55, that's a generation difference. Like there are actually, like if we look at the spectrum, that generation can look many, many different ways, not always in the in what is sometimes seen as the young, like 20-something, and the older, so folks in their 80s or so, or 90s, but that actually generation can be a 20-year-old working with a 10-year-old is a generational difference. So I think, yeah, just for me expanding with that word